I don't know how to act because I've lost 8 parts of me because I loved each and every one of them like they were my own, and I took care of them like they were my own. I mean, he loved his kids. We would take them to the parks, out to eat, come outside, play with them. He loved his kids. He loved his wife. I just don't know what happened. I'm never going to get to throw the football with him again. I'm never going to get to hear him say, "Daddy, can I get this bag of chips?" I'm never going to get to hear my nieces say, "Gunkle, can I get a nana? Gunkle, you going to work? Gunkle, are you okay?" I'm never going to hear that again.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Dominique Ben. We're continuing to follow developments surrounding Sunday morning's mass shooting in Shreveport's Cedar Grove neighborhood, where 8 children were killed. According to the Caddo District Attorney's Office, Sunday's shooting by Shamar Elkins was domestic related, possibly related to mental health factors, including PTSD. They say it had nothing to do with Elkins' previous conviction in 2019 for illegal use of a weapon.
He done shot the kids. He killed the kids. That was the message a family member received over the phone on the morning of April 19, 2026. Not a rumor, not a misunderstanding, a reality so devastating it would shake an entire nation to its core. 8 children, the youngest just 3 years old, were murdered before the sun had fully risen over Shreveport, Louisiana. And the person responsible? The man who was supposed to love and protect them more than anyone else in the world. Stay with me, because this one is going to be a lot to take in. And before we go further, if you are new here, welcome. Make sure you like this video, hit subscribe, and click the bell icon so you never miss a story. This is Vile Crimes, and we cover the cases that need to be talked about. Now, let us get into it. Shreveport, Louisiana. A city of about 180,000 people sitting in the northwest corner of the state, right along the Red River. It is the kind of city that has its own culture, its own rhythm, its own tight-knit communities. But it also has a dark reality that locals know all too well. Over 30% of murders in Shreveport are classified as domestic in nature. That is not a small number. That is a city quietly drowning in a cycle of violence happening behind closed doors, inside homes, within families. And on that Sunday morning in April, that cycle reached a point none of us could have imagined. The Cedar Grove neighborhood is where most of this story unfolds. A working-class area, the kind of place where neighbors wave at each other from their porches, where kids play in yards, where people know each other's faces. Freddie Montgomery, a man who lived across the street from the Elkins home, told CNN that the afternoon before the shooting, he had walked past and seen Shamar Elkins sitting on his front porch while children played in the yard. The 2 men waved at each other. Everything looked completely normal. By the next morning, Freddie would wake up to police vehicles filling that same street. He asked an officer if the scene was bad. The officer said yes. He asked if there were fatalities. Multiple, the officer said. He asked if children were involved. Multiple, the officer said again. Now let us talk about the people at the center of this tragedy, because understanding who they were matters. Shamar Elkins was 31 years old. Born December 7, 1994. He had served in the Louisiana Army National Guard for 7 years, from 2013 to 2020, as a signal support systems specialist and fire support specialist. He was never deployed and left the Guard as a private. At the time of the shooting, he was working a regular job at UPS. From the outside, he looked like an ordinary man trying to hold his life together. He had 2 significant relationships. His first was with Christina Snow, with whom he had 3 children. His second and most recent was with Shaniqua Pugh, whom he married in 2024 and had 4 children with. Between both women, Shamar Elkins had fathered 7 children. 7 lives he had helped bring into this world. And on April 19, 2026, he took most of them out of it.
The vehicle was chased into Bossier Parish, and at which point in time, Shreveport police officers did discharge their firearm, and that individual is deceased. We do believe him to be the only individual that fired gunshots at these locations here.
All right, so investigators say some of the victims may have been related to the suspect, but again, this is an ongoing investigation as the community mourns what officials are calling an unprecedented tragedy. The mayor of Shreveport, Tom Arsenault, released a statement late this afternoon. It says, in part, this tragedy reaches far beyond the scene itself. It affects the first responders who answered the call, the neighbors who witnessed the aftermath, the families who are now living a nightmare, and a community that feels shaken to its core. These are the kinds of moments that leave a lasting imprint on our hearts, on our minds, and on our sense of safety. And again, 8 children shot and killed in Shreveport this afternoon. So stay with WDSU for the latest, as this is a developing story.
Now here is where things start to get really heavy, so I need you to stay with me. In the weeks and months leading up to that Sunday morning, people around Shamar Elkins could see that something was very wrong. His brother-in-law, Troy Brown, said that everything had been feeling like it was falling apart for Shamar. He would constantly try to get him out of the house, invite him to sit outside, play dominoes, go for walks, anything to keep him engaged and connected. Troy even asked him directly if he needed to go back to the hospital. Shamar looked at him and said, "I'm just going to deal with it." And that right there should have been a red flag to everyone around him. Because Shamar had already been to a VA hospital in January of that same year, just a few months before the shooting. He checked himself involuntarily and stayed for about a week and a half for mental health treatment. So this was not a man who had never shown signs. This was a man who had already reached a breaking point once and had gotten some help. But whatever that help was, it was not enough. His marriage to Shaniqua was falling apart. She wanted a divorce. And according to family members who spoke to the New York Times, Shamar had told Shaniqua years earlier, before they were even married, that if she ever tried to leave him, he would kill her, their kids, and himself. Most people who hear that kind of threat probably hope the person does not mean it. Shaniqua stayed. They got married. They had children together. But by April 2026, she had made her decision. They were due in court on Monday, April 20th, to sign the divorce papers. One day after the shooting. In the days before, Shamar called his mother, Shamar Elkins, and his stepmother, crying. He told them he wanted to end his life. He said he was drowning in dark thoughts. He said he did not want to lose his wife. His own brother told reporters that Shamar kept saying, "Bro, I don't want to lose my wife." So you have a man with a history of mental health struggles, a prior criminal conviction for illegal use of a weapon, a restraining ban on possessing firearms, suicidal ideation, and a history of making death threats against his own family. And yet, on the morning of April 19th, 2026, he had a gun in his hand. We will come back to how he got that gun, because that part of the story is its own kind of disturbing. Now let us talk about what actually happened that morning, and I want you to really picture this. At approximately 5:55 in the morning, Shamar Elkins showed up at a home on Harrison Street. This was the home of Christina Snow, his ex-wife, and the mother of 3 of his children. It was early. Most people were still asleep. He walked in and shot Christina 9 times. 9 times. She was critically injured, but managed to survive. Shamar then took her 3 children and left. He drove to the 300 block of West 79th Street. This was the family home where his wife Shaniqua lived with their children, along with Shaniqua's sister Kiosha Pugh and Kiosha's 12-year-old daughter. When he walked into that house, all the children inside were asleep. What happened next is something investigators described as execution style. Shamar Elkins opened fire inside that home and killed 8 children. His own children. A cousin. Children between the ages of 3 and 11 years old. Their names were Jayla Elkins, aged 3. Shayla Elkins, 5. Kayla Pugh, 6. Layla Pugh, 7. Markaden Pugh, 10. Braylon Snow, 5. Kadarian Snow, 6. And Soraya Snow, 11. Say their names. Because they deserve to be remembered. Shaniqua was shot but survived. Her sister Kiosha and Kiosha's daughter managed to escape by jumping from the roof of the house. Shortly after, a family member received that phone call we talked about at the very beginning. He done shot the kids. He killed the kids. By 6:15 in the morning, Shamar had carjacked a vehicle and was leading police on a high-speed chase into neighboring Bossier Parish, about 15 miles away. At 6:29 a.m., officers confronted him. Shamar Elkins was shot and pronounced dead at the scene just after 7 a.m. There are conflicting reports on whether he was killed by police fire or died by suicide. The Louisiana State Police launched a separate investigation into the officer-involved shooting to determine exactly what happened in those final moments.
Just yesterday evening, he was sitting on the porch, and I waved at him. He waved back. The children were in the yard playing, and I just come in the house. And then this morning, we woke up to all of this.
Elkins had previously pleaded guilty to a weapons charge. That was back in 2019, but police are still looking for answers as to what it was that prompted this shooting.
Now let us talk about the investigation, because even after Shamar was dead, the work was far from over. The very first question law enforcement needed to answer was this: how did a man who was legally banned from owning a firearm end up with one? Remember, Shamar had been convicted back in 2019 for illegal use of a weapon. Under Louisiana law, that conviction alone meant he was prohibited from possessing a gun for at least 10 years. So where did the weapon come from? ATF agents and the Shreveport Police Department got to work immediately tracing the rifle. And what they found led them straight to a 56-year-old Shreveport man named Charles Ford. Here is how it unfolded. Investigators tracked down the original purchaser of the gun, a woman who told law enforcement that she had given the weapon to Charles Ford. When ATF agents went to Ford and asked him about it, he looked them in the eye and denied ever having the gun. Flat out lied to federal agents. But they kept pressing. And eventually Ford changed his story. He admitted that yes, he had the gun. He kept it under the seat of his truck. And then he said something that is honestly chilling when you think about what followed. He said he believed Elkins had stolen it from him. He had noticed the gun was missing from his truck around March 9th, weeks before the shooting. He had even confronted Shamar about it. But when Shamar got aggressive and defensive, Ford just let it go. He let it go. Charles Ford, by the way, is himself a convicted felon, which means he was not legally allowed to have that gun in the first place. So you have two men both prohibited from owning firearms, and a weapon that passed between them illegally and ended up being used to kill 8 children. On April 21st, just 2 days after the shooting, Ford was arrested and charged with felon in possession of a firearm and making false statements to federal agents. He faces up to 15 years in prison on the first charge and up to 5 years on the second. A second man, whose home Elkins fled to after the shooting, was also charged with illegally possessing firearms while under a domestic violence injunction. Because Shamar died during the police pursuit, he will never stand trial. He will never sit in a courtroom and face the families of those children. He will never be sentenced. And for the community of Shreveport, that is a wound that may never fully heal. U.S. Attorney Zachary Keller said it directly. Elkins' death means that our community will never see him face justice. And that brings us to the part of this story that I think we all need to sit with for a moment. This was not a case where nobody saw anything coming. The signs were there. He had made death threats against his own family years before it happened. He had a criminal history involving weapons. He had sought mental health treatment just months before. His family knew he was struggling. His brother-in-law tried to reach him. And still, 8 children are gone. Shreveport's own city council had voted in March 2026, just 1 month before the shooting, to withdraw from a partnership that was meant to operate a domestic violence resource center. 1 month before. And the sisters at the center of this tragedy, Shaniqua and Kiosha, had already lost their own mother to gun violence when they were children themselves. This family had already lived through this kind of pain once before. The community held vigils. Candles were lit. Tears were shed. But the people of Shreveport and advocates across the country are now demanding more than tears. They are demanding real investment in domestic violence prevention, mental health access for Black communities, and stronger accountability in how illegal firearms move through neighborhoods. Because here is the truth that this case forces us to face. Domestic violence rarely appears out of nowhere. It builds. It escalates. And too often, the people around it either do not know what to do or do not have the resources to do anything. Shaniqua tried to leave. She did the right thing. And she still lost her children. So let me leave you with a few questions to think about, because I genuinely want to know what you think. At what point does a threat become enough to remove someone's access to the people they are threatening? Shamar told his wife years before their marriage that he would kill her and their children if she left. Should that have been enough? And what responsibility do the people around someone in crisis carry when they see the warning signs, but are not sure what to do? Also, and this one is heavy, how many Charles Fords are out there? How many people are letting illegal weapons quietly sit under their seats, not thinking about where those guns might end up? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. and I genuinely want to hear your perspective on this case. If this story moved you, please share it, because these 8 children deserve for the world to know their names. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell so you are notified every time we drop a new story. We are Vile Crimes, and we will keep telling the stories that matter. Rest in peace to Jayla, Shayla, Kayla, Layla, Mark Hayden, Braylon, Kadarian, and Soraya. You deserved so much more.